that, I will first introduce our presenter, Magnus T. Bernhardsson, the Brown Professor of History and Faculty Affiliate in Arabic Studies, Leadership Studies, and Religion, and Chair of the Global Studies Program. Magnus has been with Williams since 2003 and is a beloved professor specializing in the modern Middle East. Since the creation of the college's strategic plan in 2021, he's also been the on-campus champion and now leader of the Global Scholars Program, which he'll focus on today. And over the course of his presentation, he'll also be joined by students in the inaugural cohort of this program. Please join me in welcoming Magnus Bernhardsson.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you all for coming here today. And I'm very excited to talk to you about this program. I've been here since 2003, which now makes me above average in terms of age. But I think, of course, when we get older, we appreciate how important experience is. So it's not just about youth and idealism. But talking about youth and idealism, I'd like to introduce to you a new program that we just started this year. And I think in some ways, I am not at least aware of any other program at any other college or university that resembles what we are trying to do here. So this is new. I think it's experimental, it's ambitious, but also we're trying to do something that is relevant to Williams College today in the 21st century. And that has been so personally exciting for me to be involved in something that is new, that is not so, oh, we've been doing this since 1865, and we'll always have to do it this way. No, we're creating a structure from scratch, and it is involving a lot of student input in terms of what they want to do and what they need, and also about their future dreams and their ambitions and how we can best support what we do in the future. So we created something called the Williams Global Scholars, and since I'm a historian, Laura, I have to correct your history a little bit, because the roots of this actually lie in 2007, when at that point, that president then, Mordi Shapiro, had something called the 2020 Vision. And at that point, we first started talking about this Global Scholars Program, and then we had this ambition, but then 2008 happened. And so then we had to sort of rethink and repurpose and so on and so forth. And then we were talking about it because we're academics, we like to talk about things. And then when Maud became president, then the strategic plan came into being. And that's when, after lots of consulting, we decided this kind of program makes sense of what we're trying to do now in the 21st century. And so let me just introduce a little bit what we're doing. What we're very concerned with here in Williams, because we are an isolated place, so we have to work very hard not to be isolating. So how do we not keep our students from feeling isolated intellectually and so forth? And so we need to prepare them to enter this world in which they have developed these sort of basic global competency skills. And what could those be? Here are some few things that we sort of think about. We need to help them, prepare them to enter that world at some point when they graduate. And some of this is to sort of understand their own country or their own home in global terms, but also to be able to sort of address an issue, for example, like climate change, and be able to understand that from the perspective of somebody living in Indonesia or Bolivia or Paris. And so therefore, these are sort of how do you think about complicated global aspects, not just from your own home perspectives. So how do you inculcate that to students and to the institution? So what skills are necessary? What do we need to do? So I think these are some of the things that we have sort of identified as what we were trying to get through the program, is to have this multifaceted awareness, because a complicated thing is not just solved by biology majors, it's not just solved by political science majors. We need people from different disciplines, different backgrounds to work together to solve problems. And second of all, many academics are very solitary. You work on your own, and you don't want to be bothered by anybody else. So how do you encourage people to work on teams? So this is some of the necessary skills and attitudes that we want to instill. So how do we then, if that's the outcome of that we want to do, what do we want to build specifically as far as Williams is concerned? How do you build up the competencies? So this is what we sort of is the ultimate purpose of the Global Scholars Program. This is an interdisciplinary, cohort-based, research-based, multi-year program. We want to promote purposeful and responsible travel, because in this day and age in sustainability and climate change, we don't just want people traveling without being responsible travelers. When they go somewhere, they know what they're doing and for what purpose. We also want to make sure that when you do travel, whether it's in winter study or the summer, that you connect it back to the regular semester. And so we want to strengthen the bonds between the summer and the regular semesters. We also did something that which I think has been quite important to this program. This is where maybe you can sort of help think through the structure, is to provide students with access to multi-year and regular mentorship, both on campus and outside of campus. And then finally, there's sort of the multifaceted global awareness and skill sets. So these are the first two cohorts. On your far right, that's the original class of 26, and that's the 12 of them that we picked. And this is the brand new class there on your left, from the class of 27. And I'll give you their names and their academic interests, their backgrounds, and so on and so forth. The one on the right, the woman with them is the president of the American University in Paris. We had an alumni event there, and she is actually the mother of a recent graduate, so she's an Eve parent, and we presented at that moment. So that's the first cohort there on the right, and then the one on the left is the second cohort, this year's first-year students. Now, the way we did this, because it was brand new, when the students were in their first year, basically in January, winter study, they applied. And then we interviewed every single one of them, because we wanted to give students the opportunity to apply for something real. Not just apply for college, that's one thing, but to apply for something that's attractive and competitive. And if something is desirable in life, it's competitive. So they had an application, and then they had a 20 to 30-minute interview with a faculty panel, and they had to defend their positions. And we were very surprised when we got 70 applications of the first-year class. So basically about 15% of the student body of the first year class wanted to apply. And so therefore out of those 70, we picked 12. And that was a very difficult decision. Of course, all these people were qualified, but we had certain kinds of considerations that we wanted to think about when we're creating, how do you create a cohort that will work well together at different interests and so on and so forth, to be meaningful and make a good team. And we're picking a cohort for long term, for the next 3 years, and possibly beyond. So this is the initial class here, the class of 26, who are now sophomores. And as you can see, they have a number of different languages. They have a number of different research interests. And they're also involved in different parts of the campus. That's something, as a faculty member, I wasn't so aware of. That, it's important that you don't just have people on the rugby team on this thing, or just people who are involved in certain. You want to make sure that different pockets of campus with people with different interests and skill sets are involved. And so, for example, I'll just take the top 3 there. Catherine is from California, Palo Alto area. She's a political science major, is very interested in sort of North African European relations, and specifically Algeria and France. And then we have Ram Johan Knecht. He is economics and Chinese major. He's very interested in international security and especially US-Chinese relations, and he's fluent in German and Mandarin. And then we take the third one from Dallas, Texas. She's pre-med, and she's also very interested in sort of comparative healthcare management and healthcare systems, so looking at hospitals in different parts and what their needs are and how they the resources and resource allocation. So these are just sort of the top 3 of this area. As you can see, come from different parts of the world. For some reason, we had 3 people from Texas. That was somewhat random. I mean, so Texas is overrepresented in the first class. This is the second class, the Global Scholars of 27. And if I just take the bottom 3, for example, and their interest, we have Yunai. She's from California, and she is a psychology and philosophy potential major. She's very interested in sort of environmental issues, but also comparative philosophies. And then if you take Doralyn Ventura Lopez, she's also pre-med. She is very interested in sort of rural medicine and sort of accessing medicines in sort of outside of the metropole. And then we have Arman. He's from Kazakhstan, and he's interested in mathematics, and he's very interested in AI. And so we're thinking, if he's interested in AI, how would he talk about AI with, say, a biologist, English major, and so on and so forth? And so these were the people that we have selected to be sort of in the initial classes, and we're very excited about them. What we also did, and this is the mentorship program that we set up, which I think has had somewhat unexpected and very fruitful outcomes. So each student was given a student mentor, a senior, and so in the future, the senior mentors will all be global scholars. Then they're given a specific faculty mentor. Of course, you have academic advisors, but this is sort of an additional resource. And then we paired them up with 2 alumni mentors, like people like yourself, to serve as their mentors, because I know something about academics, I know something about Williams, but I don't really know much about what happens after Williams in specific fields. And so therefore, for example, with, let's take Sarah Wang, there at the bottom, she's very interested in immigration and immigration law and things of that related to that. So I paired her up with 2 people who are involved in immigration law in different capacities. One is in private practice in New York, and the other one works for the Department of Justice, I think, in Chicago. And so I try to have sort of different generations and different fields, and so therefore they can provide Sarah with much better advice and information than I'm just some history professor. What do I really know about those things? And they have been talking about through, what to do this summer, what I did as a junior and senior, and so on and so forth. And this, when we were interviewing the first years, what I was surprised about, because now the first years, when they applied and they heard more about this program, many of them were very intrigued to have access to the mentorship structure. Initially, when I was planning this, I was thinking so much about the academic part. This mentorship was an afterthought. But I think now people see it as something very valuable that they want to access. So if you want to be involved in that as mentors, please let me know. And as far as I can tell, so far, people have had very good experiences with their mentors. But these are the basic academic requirements. So as sophomores in the fall, they take an interdisciplinary class together, the 12 of them. And it's sort of broadly defined, what is the world, what is global, thinking about global migrations, global flow of ideas and goods and services, and so on and so forth. Then as during winter study, this group travels to a destination. This past year, they went to Paris, and we'll talk about the Paris trip very shortly. But part of the reason is that you study something in the fall, get introduced to international organization, international processes, and then you prepare yourself. And so when you go into that space, this new space, then you know what to expect, you know what questions to ask, what these institutions are, to empower you, to give you self-confidence to be in those spaces. Then there's also a language requirement, a language competency requirement. As you might know, Williams does not have a language requirement, which personally I do not agree with. I think we should have a language requirement, but this program has a language requirement. And so by the end of the senior year, a student will have to demonstrate competency in a foreign language, because if you want to be on the global stage, you can't just do it through English. And there's some benefit, practical skills to learning another language. And what happens when you learn another language? There's all kinds of intellectual, cognitive things that happen when you're learning a language. And finally, we expect that in the senior year, they do a research colloquium, sort of a culmination of their academic career. So this is a multi-year interdisciplinary program. And I'm going to show you that we also have other opportunities throughout the year in which are sort of skill building and sort of professional development, but also providing funds and sort of opportunities for them to develop whatever interest they might have that might not be accessible here in Williamstown. So here are some pictures from this past year. We went on a symposium to New York City, attended a conference at Columbia, and they also visited the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So get them out of town to see what the discussion is on other campuses, and so on and so forth. Then they organized something called Global Issues Forum. In Griffin 3 was packed in both events, where these students, the global scholars, they wanted to promote a lively discussion on campus. The first forum was about US-China relations, and the second one was about regulating AI. And both, so very different kinds of topics, and very different people came, but very fruitful and powerful conversations. And then we had dinner with the speakers and so forth afterwards. During our trip to Paris, we visited the first week week, we visited international organizations and think tanks and so on and so forth, so you can sort of see in the flesh the things that you've been studying about in the fall. And so we went to the Nubar Library, which is a library devoted to the study of genocide, particularly the Armenian genocide. And then we had 2 visits to embassies, the American embassy, which is, of course, a very big embassy because the Americans are very involved in France. And then we went to a very small embassy, but just as important, the Icelandic embassy, and to see what the difference is between a small and a big nation and what the challenges that they have in that stage. We went to the OECD, we went to UNESCO, we went to European Union think tank. We had Hussein Aga Khan, who is a class of 97, visit the class. The Aga Khan Foundation, as you might know, is one of the world's biggest charitable organizations that funds projects all around the world. And so the Aga Khan met with the students to talk about his work and the work of the organization. We went to the OECD. Yeah, we happened to, France, Paris apparently has good food, so we decided to do some field trips to some restaurants. Just so happened that they were there, the restaurants, and we presented at the alumni event. Then when we came back, we have had a few sort of professional sort of skill development, and these were things both that the students asked for, but also my conversations with alums who were saying what they think that students need more of. And so we had a day and a half to analyze the boot camps after we came back from Paris. And we had somebody from the World Justice Project, which has something called the Rule of Law Index, where they go to every single country in the world, they do qualitative and quantitative research, the survey, and then they take that information and have a database where they visually display this information so that people can sort of evaluate the state of their country and whether to invest there and so on and so forth. And I think for the students, this was sort of a sort of very tangible project. This was different than taking a regular mathematics or stats class. This was sort of a person in the field doing something that has sort of real world consequences. And so this was also a way for them who have different sort of quantitative skills backgrounds to sort of work together on something very, very specific. So we did that, and then we also had a panel. We called it How to Be a Good Person, but it was basically an ethics panel where we had a philosopher and somebody from the religion department just talking through things, what people do in difficult situations. What well do you draw on when you are faced with a hard ethical decision in your personal or in your professional life. And this might be sort of like a hard and soft things, but I think equally important that we sort of think about who we are, what do we need when we sort of are moving in the world, whether it's this summer as sophomores or if in the future as professionals. Then in April, we had a symposium up at Mount Hope where those students who had gone to France had taken the course together. They had then done some extracurricular activities together. They are now as sophomores, and we're trying to get them to think about, okay, you are now sophomores, you have access to resources and mentorship. Now you have to have a plan, and you have to get feedback for your plan. So they had to present at a conference up at Mount Hope, which is a very nice setting, sort of this is what I think I will be doing. Because we had seniors present on their sort of almost completed senior thesis, so the sophomores could see this is what I need to be like in 2 years. And then also, when is it best for you to get feedback on your project? It's not when you're done, it's when you're early in your stages, right? When you're sort of, how should I approach it, where should I go, where are the sources, and so on and so forth. So they presented 5 minutes, and we worked on them to present. You can't just sort of stand up and just talk. No, you have to think thoughtfully about how to present, how to be an effective person, sort of oral delivery, and so on and so forth. And we were very strict with time. You have to speak 5, and so we had to go practice. So I think when they entered onto that stage, I think they were confident in presenting their material and were ready for the feedback. So in 2 years from now, these sophomores will present as seniors on their sort of senior projects, and we are, we'll support them along those ways, because my ideal with this is that by participating in this multi-year interdisciplinary cohort, you feel that you're part of a team. You come in here as a first year, you join this team, and then you are meeting regularly throughout. that there's accountability to that, but there's also that you feel that you're part of something greater than yourself. And this is why I'm personally very excited about this. This is why I'm putting a lot of my energy into this these days, because I think in some ways, if this experiment goes well, which so far it's going pretty well, that I can imagine that in the future we could have several of such interdisciplinary teams. This one is involved around global issues. There might be one involved around art or cognitive science or climate change or whatever. And so when you enter here as a first-year student, you sort of, first few months, you're sort of figuring out where am I, what am I doing here, and so on and so forth. Then sort of in the beginning of that spring semester, you thought, okay, which interdisciplinary academic team should I join? Who will be my peers for the next 3 years? So I might become a biology major, but I'll also have this other sort of academic identity. So to downplay other forms of identity in terms of extracurricular things and so on and so forth, enhance your who you are, but also learn in very deliberate ways from other students, and also learn from sort of alums and faculty members who are interested in this aspect. So these are the things that we're excited about. This is what we've been doing in this first year. And so we have two of these, here's pictures from the conference up at Mount Hope where they were presenting. There's Dilyara presenting, who will talk to you in a few minutes. And that was the audience. So, you know, they had to, sort of a very formal setting. It's sort of intimidating as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old to stand up in front of a group of faculty and staff and other senior students, say, this is what I'm going to do in the future on my thing, in my research. But they survived. So this is what is the purpose of this plan. How do we make our students feel supported? How do we feel them that they're ready to tackle on the world? And we're not doing it just by hope. Things will work out. We think we have to maybe be deliberate, to have these steps along the way based on where they are every time academically, so that by the time they're seniors and by the time they graduate, the chances that they will go wherever they are with more confidence, with feeling like they have supported, and that they can easily take on the next challenge. So I'm going to introduce to you two of these students who are here today, Soumya and Dilyara. Do you want to come here to the stage? So both of them are sophomores. We're parts of the very first class. And we have microphones here if you want.
Thank you.
And so this is.
Are they just on?
I think they're just on.
Oh, okay.
They're on? Yes.
Yeah. Yes?
So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. You can hear me, right? Oh, wow.
I think it's the other side. Up. This way. That's the.
Oh, hi. Yes, I can hear me now. No, we are both theater majors, so this is what I thought would be the mic because it's just bigger. But hi. I am Soumya Shinde. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm from Mumbai, India. And I finally declared my major in the last 2 weeks. I will be doing women's gender and sexuality studies as my first major, and I've finally chosen theater as my second major, and I might do justice and law studies as my concentration. And I'll be studying away next year at WIPO with 3 other global scholars. But yeah, nice to meet you. And for the winter study, one thing I had done was intern with Juliet Norman-Smith. She's an alum from the class of 2017. And I was interning with her on the Happy Schools project at UNESCO. And I'm happy to talk more about that too. But I'll let Dilyara introduce herself.
Yes, thank you. Dilyara Sadikova. I'm from Kazan, Russia. Surprisingly, we only 2 internationals, and we're here in our cohort. And I also major in theater, also not very representative, but it just happens. But at the last moment, we decided to major in theater. But I also major in economics and global studies concentration in climate change, and climate justice is my main professional interest. And what else? Next year I'm going to Cambridge to study economics, and last summer, this winter study, I worked on climate justice project with non-profit, but I mainly met with OECD environmental economists, like international energy organizations, just to see different aspects of climate justice activism.
And could you talk a little bit about what attracted you to this program, and what have been some of the benefits, do you think, of the program?
I can start because, as I mentioned, my main interest is climate change and its global issue. And as well, I come from ethnic minority in Russia, Tatars, so it also, like indigenous studies also was one of my interests all this time. And what was the second question about mentorship?
What were some of the benefits?
Benefits, yeah. I thought about mentorship because it was the main benefit for me, because Magnus Bernhardsson somehow chose ideal mentors for me, which weren't ideal for me when I just started this program, but now they turn out to be so helpful in all possible ways, because my interest is environmental economics, and my professor is the only environmental economist on this campus. As for now, one of them is on sabbatical. And my mentors as well, for instance, one of my mentors, which I didn't expect to be very applied for my academic research, let's call it this way, Jane Peterson. She goes to Harvard Kennedy School, but accidentally I had a conversation with her about her class in Siberian permafrost and in general Arctic permafrost, and now this summer I won a travel fellowship to go to Siberia and to do research in permafrost in Siberia. And my last mentor, David Carlin, he works in UNEP FI, which is sustainable finance, and I worked in ESG finance investment, and I also see like application of climate finance as one of the main tools to advance just energy transition in the world as well as climate change. And it's like surprisingly all my three mentors like triple combo, like so perfect for my research and thesis, and I was just very excited and very grateful for Magnus Bernhardsson for finding them.
Yeah. For me, my student mentor is Kay, and they are majoring in philosophy and neuroscience. And that's not something that I'm doing, but I think it just kind of reflects. And also my other two mentors are Gerard Khan and Stephanie G, and they both work with refugees and more with like law and social work with those lenses. But I think that kind of reflects my own interest, because when I came in, I remember I was like a multi-potentialite. I want to do everything, and I have so many different interests. And that kind of like, I think that's something I was struggling with, like how do I focus and narrow down? Because for me, it seemed like, oh, I can't do those things. And if I have to even declare a major, that means I can't do the other things. But I think having these mentors and having those doors open to be able to do those things and see how they have traversed their college life, and talking to Stephanie and Gerard was really helpful, because I realized that Stephanie never did justice and law studies in Williams College when she was here, but later on she went for law school, and I feel like that just kind of made me feel like a little less rushed in my Williams career, with being like, okay, I have to major in everything and I have to concentrate on everything, because every other day my major was changing in my first year. So I think that was really helpful, just to have these three mentors. And also actually Sarah Wong talked to me, and we were like talking about our mentors, and I was like, those would be like perfect mentors for her too. So I connected her with my mentors. So it's not very strict, like you can only talk to your mentors. So she was able to actually have even more mentors for herself to like talk about, because she's also interested in refugee and immigration work. But I was also able to kind of get the winter study when we went to the American Embassy. That was also a connection through Gerard Khan. So definitely having alumni as mentors helped us shape our winter study, but it's also helping me shape my summer and figure out what I want to do with it. I am going back to Paris for 2 months. And Global Scholars is helping me with that like immensely. So I feel like that was also one of the very attractive features for me of Global Scholars, was the resources, was the help, was the funding. I am seeing a lot of my other fellow sophomore friends right now who are scrambling to realize, okay, like there is a lot of money on campus and you can get it, and they are ready to share with you and help you out. But I think it is difficult as a sophomore who has just like, I don't call myself a sophomore. I think I'm a first year with just like a few months in, like a few months extra. Here, and I feel it's really difficult to understand where you fit in, what you want to do. So having that guidance has been really, really helpful. And I can see that when some of my other friends who have not had this opportunity, and we've talked about it, and they've realized, or like even my seniors who never got this opportunity because of COVID and everything, they were talking about how this would have been really, really helpful. So yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things, like resources and guidance and mentorship really, really helps me. And we were talking the other day after the pre-Frosh previews, me and Dylan, we were talking, and we were like, we cannot imagine what our Williams career would have been like if we weren't in Global Scholars, because I feel so rooted and so not scared about the future at this point. Like I am a little nervous about grad school, everything else, but I feel like I have some community to rely on and peers to rely on. And that definitely makes undergrad a little easier to go through. But yeah, that was my reason.
Yeah, I also actually completely agree, because especially last 2 points, community and resources, because Global Scholars, as Tommy mentioned, give such a security, but in my case, I always applied to all fellowships, all ASIPs, everything on this campus, so I wasn't very scared about this element, but at the same time, community and security gives me not only some opportunities, but also I can continue my research during winter study, and I continue my research during like spring breaks. Soumya, for instance, she went to conference during spring break, which was like help thanks to Global Scholars, and it just gave me such a like strong foundation for my continuation of my research. So it wasn't just like, I mean, it will not be just like summer project and ended, because my office fellowship will end, but at the same time I will be able to continue during winter study, because I'm doing Cambridge for fall and acting school hopefully for spring. And when next year summer I will be able to, I will apply for so many fellowships and look for cooperations in our universities, but at the same time I will have like security sense of community and resources that I will be able to deepen my research and like go such a nice transition to thesis without getting like scared and stressed out. And and community as well, because for instance like Hikaru, he's not my student mentor, but he technically adopted me. He's one of Global Scholars' other mentor, and he worked with my other mentor who's Alumni office, so just the community and how everything is interconnected and creates like almost sense of family, but at the same time family which can support you. It's like very rewardable, and we're very like grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, and I also remember you talking about this during the info session, but that during summer and winter study, it does feel like students are just left to like do whatever you want to, and yeah, that can be like a great way for you to have student agency and to shape it how you want to. But also, a lot of us do feel lost, because we're like, okay, what are we supposed to do? Am I just supposed to do an internship because everyone is doing an internship? Is that going to be beneficial to me? And not having, I think, mentors sometimes, I think, does deter me from being like, okay, what do I actually want to do, and what do I feel like I have to do because others are doing it? And I think that's also beautiful, because we have so much diversity. Each person is a different major, is doing a different field, is doing a different thing. So I feel like it's more inspiring just to be able to see each other and see like, okay, what are you doing, and how can I support you in that? But also with winter study, it can be a very relaxing time. But I personally also felt like it didn't feel as connected to my education personally for myself, and I wanted to do something more with it, because I felt like it was just left there. Like after the winter study, I just move on and go into my spring semester, and then I'm like, okay, what do I do with that? How do I build up upon that? And I feel like with Global Scholars, we are able to do that. Winter study is not just a blip in your Williams career. You are actively building towards it with the fall class, where we're like talking about it, and we're like building a project, and we go in the winter study and we come back and we're still revisiting. So back when I go in this summer, I'll be going back to Paris and hopefully building up on the work that I was doing for the entire year. So yeah, that's also another thing that I really, really like about this program.
One thing that this program is doing, we're not creating anything new. We already have study away, we already have fellowships, we already have winter study trips, we already have academic crosses, we already have mentorships, we already have advisors on campus. So what this did, in a way, was just bring all those things together into one package and make it sort of maybe visible and maybe accessible, so that you could sort of figure out where to go from A to B, and also to have a long-term plan, to sort of, as first-year students, to know, okay, I don't know what I'm going to major in, or I don't know what I'm going to do my senior year, but at least I have this, and now I can sort of plan accordingly around that.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because some of the seniors I've talked to, they are a little envious that they didn't get to ever even apply for this program, right? But I think that they had the same reflection, that these resources exist, all of these programs exist, but then bringing it all together in such a packaged way for a first year who is literally like in deer in headlights and doesn't know what they're doing here, I think that's really, really helpful. Yeah, I agree with that.
Should we open it up for questions? If you have any comments or suggestions, because we're just starting. Yes, sir, yes?
First of all, amazing, congratulations. I too feel envious. I wish we did this when we were here. My question is a little bit what you imagine will happen in the third and fourth year of the cohort. Because it seems to me that the challenge is to balance the diversity of topics with a structure that allows them to also go to deep dive into their own interests, which at some point, maybe the person looking at legal studies can't really have a productive conversation with the person having AI because they actually are speaking, they're so far deep into their research. I'm wondering what the imagined itinerary is for year 3 and 4.
Very good question, and you identified the Achilles heel of the program because we haven't gone through it yet. We're having dinner at my house next week, the 12 of us, where we're going to be talking about the junior year because we are sort of assuming, well, many of them are studying, won't be on campus next year. So how do you maintain a cohort if you're physically not in the same space? So that will be the challenge next year. So we're going to be talking about deliberately about how we can do that. Maybe some Zoom meetings, but also maybe we could do something else. And so that will be the big challenge for next year. And so maybe we'll talk in 2 or 3 years to see how it works. But we're going through this next year, and this is a big concern. But because we're talking about it now, I think we'll be more deliberate and also about when and how we meet. And also because the cohort is already here. Like the Paris trip really brought these individuals together as a team. I think they really think of themselves as a team. So I think we will be more deliberate about that. But then their senior year, then some of them will be taking a class together, but some of them might be in their different departments. And then we'll be doing that undergraduate symposium in the spring where they will all sort of present there. But also what I'm anticipating is this year we started the year with an info session about global careers and how to navigate the sort of the alumni network. And what do people do with sort of after Williams. So it's like a career service because they were very anxious about that the sophomore year. Then we also had a fellowship about fellowships and study away. So I'm anticipating as seniors, we will have similar kind of extracurricular things, sort of meetings where they are then at that point as seniors, what are their needs then? And what will be helpful to them at that point and as teams. And so this is the weakness because this is not like an academic major that competes with a biology or English major. They are supposed to enhance your standing and your sort of advancement within that major. But so we are entering this stage now where we're not so controlled in a way, and that will be a big challenge. So we'll have to, I guess, wait and see.
Yeah, but also our class, which we took in 151, it encourages so many people to think broadly and more globally. So even people in our cohort who didn't want to study away, now I think everyone's studying away. I had this feeling, roughly speaking. So this class changed our views to the world. So now we want to get exposed to different schools and visions, not only Western American centered. So that's why majority is studying away, and I have a feeling that majority is studying in Europe during the year, especially many in UK. For people in WIPO, like I am in Cambridge, and some people will be around. So honestly, it's not coordinated with Magnus Bernhardsson, but as he just mentioned, we got so close during Paris trip, and we got so close during our trips to other cities. For instance, when we went to New York City, it was flooding, so we stuck for 7 hours in the van, and we bonded so much that now we're best friends. And that's why we actually, within Global Scholars, we plan to meet a lot during studying away, especially in Europe, because many people will be in Europe. So majority of us will meet. So that's why I'm not concerned about losing the community at all. And we have our group chat with silly WhatsApp stickers as well, which we keep very active. So we created friend group for long time period.
Oh, I just wanted to add on to that, talking across the divisions. I love that question because we were already doing that with our class in fall, where everyone's coming from a different major and different theories and different environments. And frankly, I have realized that in Vijay's classes, how the environment is and what you take for granted as your basis before you even start talking is very different than what you would do in an econ class or in a maths class or in a comp sci class. So when we used to try to talk about, and the class was called Global Questions, Global Framework, so we used to come and we used to be okay, how can we solve this issue? What do we think about this issue? How can we look at it from different lenses? And I would find myself being I have to, rethink from a different lens because I'm talking to someone from econ who has a very different understanding of maybe that issue, and I'm looking at it from a very different lens. And I feel that has been very startling, but also a good realization because we will be working with people like us after college too, where we have to convince each other of our point of view. And we've been willing to let go of our biases, of our pre-held assumptions, and we have stepped into each other's worlds, even though it has been difficult sometimes. But we've also well facilitated for that. But that's something I've also been thinking about a lot. So thank you.
Yes.
I was thinking about one of the fun things that I did when I was here, which was to overlap with people from the CDE. It seems like a natural mix. I don't know if there's one more column, if there's group events that you could do and have it naturally fall out, but almost having somebody from not anything related to what you're doing.
That's a great idea.
You're focused on Russia, but they're from Cameroon.
Yeah.
And they can see things in your life that you can't see.
Yeah.
So I just say it was a treasure for me for little overlaps.
Yes.
Figure out how to, I know their schedules are hugely busy,
yes.
in the 1 year they're here.
Yes.
But it might be fun.
Yeah, that's a good point. That we will definitely, for next year, at least have a meal or two up at the CDE or have events with them. We did not involve them this year, but partly because we were just sort of. But that's an underutilized resource, and and maybe just have a CDE alum as part of their team, because yes, they might be from the central bank or Ministry of Finance or a respective country, but they also have other interests, and they're older, and they might also give advice in terms of navigating the world in different spaces. So excellent idea.
Yeah, actually, because thanks to Global Scholars, I got involved with CDE myself, because this class, again, made me fit globally, so I'm currently taking class in CDE, Global Studies cross-listed. And yes, thank you so much for the idea, because actually the professor who I'm taking tutorial with and the students, CDE students, we're actually very, we have close thinking to global framework understanding, so yeah, I also just wanted to comment that Global Scholars encouraged us to involve with CDE, but actually getting official connections, it would have been very nice, yeah.
So when I give this talk next year, if I'm invited back, I'll aim to have another column here. Now this is something, because we've been creating something from scratch. We can definitely add this in. It's not like, we've never had the CDE involved.
Or even just dinner would be great too.
Yeah, but also just why not formally involve them in because you utilize those, and then they go back, and then with that could be their way, because the CDE alums often struggle with connecting with the college. I mean, there's not like a natural way connection. So this could be one way to connect them. Great idea. Yes?
A question. There's an academic component to this as a base, but then it's largely co-curricular with travel and other kind of experiential type things. How is the program funded?
Yes, that's a good question. Right now it's funded through the Global Initiative Venture Fund, which is out of the Dean of the Faculty's Office. And so far, so it doesn't have its own budget, because I think we're still sort of an experiment. And so it could be that in 2 years from now we won't no longer exist. But I'm hopeful that in the future we will have our own budget and have our own budget line, so we can plan accordingly. But we're also sort of trying to figure out what our needs are and what really is needed. And then also right now we just have one cohort, 12 people in the fall, that then goes on a winter study trip. And that precludes, therefore, a winter athlete, for example, could not participate in, because they're like the swimmers and the basketball team. So maybe but we've been focusing on quality rather than quantity. So maybe in the future we could, if we were to expand, would be sort of have a spring semester course with a May-June trip. So then, say, winter athletes could potentially participate, and maybe a different kind of rhythm. But this is new, so we're sort of figuring things out. And then, for example, we don't know how much the junior year will cost for them. Very little per se, perhaps. So this is all in the works.
Well, I applaud you. This is a great initiative.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to all the support of the institution and a lot of the different people have been involved. And then I think also the students themselves, they've been sort of active participants in creating the structure themselves. And I've gotten some feedback but suggestions for ideas, because this is all very new, and also because I don't want to, because I'm interested in certain things and I'm of a certain generation, And so I have anxieties about certain things, but I don't have maybe the same anxiety or worries of this generation and what they are interested in. And so I think to have that sort of active feedback loop, to have a structure that makes sense to this generation, I think is important. And so it's very much a team effort.
Thank you.
Yes?
Are there any components of the program currently, or as you imagine for the future, that would involve students who are not specifically in the cohort?
Yes, so this is very important to us. So on the one hand, we're very sort of exclusive in a way. Like we picked 12, and so we have been working very hard of not being like, well, we're the special VIP people. That the purpose of this is to have ripple effects. That this is one way, and that so therefore Samia and Dilara, they have these experiences, and they will bring that to their classroom. They will bring that energy into campus, their classes, and the research, and full participants in campus life, and so on and so forth. And so apart from the data analytic bootcamp and the panel, most of our events have been public events for the benefit of others. Because yes, we don't want to be, we want to be inclusive, even though we are also exclusive in a way. But that's not the purpose of this, to withdraw. We want to be full participants, and maybe sort of role model a little bit about how we work with one another, how we collaborate, how we reach out, and so forth. And so, but this is a concern. We don't want to be a little fraternity, and that has been a big. We have talked about that a lot, and also because 60 of the classmates didn't get into this program, and so how should we navigate that? And so this is a very important concern. And if you invite me back next year, then we will continue to reflect on that, because I think this is what is, I think, beautiful about Williams College. It's small, and the emphasis on equity is important, but this is right now an experiment, and right now we're emphasizing the small number, and then hopefully it will grow so more people could participate in a meaningful way. Yes?
I remember there was a cross-disciplinary program on leadership.
Yes.
Started by Aldo Bowles and I think McAllister.
Yes.
And so I wondered what happened to that program.
It's still here. It's an academic program that teaches courses like Introduction to Leadership, and you can concentrate in leadership studies like you can concentrate in, so it's like a minor, so it's not like but we call it concentration. So it's still active. And nobody as of right now in our cohort has sort of expressed a direct interest in that as of right now. But in my experience, because I'm affiliated with the Leadership Studies program, usually people become sort of leadership studies concentrated their junior and senior years. So it's possible that one of them. So we work. It's still alive and still active. Yes, in the back.
This is a very exciting program, and it's fascinating to see it here at the beginning.
Yes.
And so what I'm wondering is, I'd like to hear from the two participants right now, the sense of, ultimately we cannot go to the whole globe, so we have to think we're going to go someplace, but it will have a global dimension. Could you just share with us what you anticipate you might do on graduating from Williams?
Yes. What are you going to do when you grow up?
Yes, I can start because I planned my whole life like 10 years ahead, Magnus Bernhardsson knows. And I came to Williams with like very defined interest intentionally. But so I was very surprised that I ended up majoring in theater because it wasn't in my plans. So actually this class was very influential for me in terms of my research specificity, because I came as microeconomics, corporate sustainability, green finance person, but thanks to this class I switched much more to global lens, and the current tutorial I'm taking it's on socioeconomic policies of crises, so in developing world. And I'm interning in the company of a professor who has research institute in South Africa, and I really like this kind of work because they use tools of research, which is more of like privileged tools, but the whole point of these tools is to apply them in policy making, and specifically social protection from climate change and roughly speaking, so people in developed world and global south, as we covered in our class. I mean, I know it before as well, that it's like the most marginalized communities for climate change. And I very like this work I'm currently doing in this company, and which I got encouraged thanks to global scholars, that you can use economics tools, you can use like knowledge and skills, because we're all privileged here, like even both of us, we're like on full financial aid internationals at Williams, but we have opportunity to bring these skills to back to the communities which need the most. So that's why I see myself working in socioeconomic policies which protect communities from climate change consequences in global south. Or as a second option, as I mentioned, I'm doing environmental economics, but thanks to global scholars, again, like now I'm 100% sure I will not be working in like USA-centered company and everything. So I'm considering like other options as like maybe multilateral banks, or more of like UNEP sounds very nice for me as well. So international companies which work globally and which consider parts of development world. For instance, OECD has development office, which we actually visited with Magnus Bernhardsson, which also may be one of my career paths, because it's again working to help the most marginalized communities, but using the tools of research, which is very nicely aligned with our program because it gives us such a strong research foundation. So just learning how to utilize tools of research as a global scholar, and at Williams, very helpful to like future career, like to actually have an impact on policy making for social protection and climate protection.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I've been trying to not think about it for a while. But also I was meeting with another first year who is a part of the 27 cohort. And she said that you had asked them the question, what are your dreams? And to like come prepared for the lunch. And she said that she teared up because no one had ever asked her what are her dreams. And I don't know, I think that was just like something that I've been thinking more and more about with the Global Scholars Program, like what are my dreams? Like what do I feel like I need to do? I think I talked about that in my other answer too. And what do I want to do? And I feel like I'm still trying to traverse that. In the last 2 years, I've changed so much. I would have not seen myself. If you would have told me I was going to be a Vijay and a theater major, I would have laughed at you. I don't think I would have ever said that I would be doing that. I
mean, you could have guessed.
It's in hindsight, it's easier to see that, yeah, I fit into these majors, but like 2 years before, I didn't even know what other things I could be doing. So I'm definitely open. I have some plans, but I'm definitely very open to see what happens in the next 2 years and how much I change and keep changing. But I know I want to go for grad school and potentially do a PhD. I am considering one in anthropology or in theater studies. And I'm still trying to figure out if I want to be involved in performance arts while performing, or I want to research it from a decolonial and feminist perspective. And possibly I might want to do both. So I'm thinking about that. But I'm also thinking long-term, I want to do work in, like I want to do social work, community building work. I am a certified dialogue facilitator and conflict mediator with Seeds of Peace and Yes Jam. So I'm also trying to like nourish that. So the spring conference, spring break conference that I went for was about facilitation and conflict mediation. So I'm still trying to work on that too. So yeah, I kind of know what my dream is. I'm just trying to figure out what would be the best path to get there. But yeah, thank you for that question.
Do we have time for? Okay, great. Oh boy, the Achilles heel question again. We have two heels, I guess. Sorry.
I'm just so excited about the program. I wonder, because you talk about that experiment.
Yes.
And I wonder if has the conversation with the administration gotten quite serious, or serious enough where you have metrics about the experiment and you have timelines about the experiment, where you can say, well, when we hit certain goals, we will grow, or we will add, or what the sort of story, the evolutionary story you might have for how the experiment becomes something more established.
Yeah, so this has full institutional support, and part of it, because it did come out of the strategic plan, it's mentioned as like a signature product in the strategic plan. And then I think by the time these people, this cohort graduates, then we'll have like the first iteration of it. And I think that would sort of, in 2 years' time, that will be a good moment to sort of evaluate, based on the skills that and the sort of the impact that we hope this would have on both the students, but also the faculty and staff, because already we're seeing a lot of offices are starting to work together that, in ways that hadn't happened before. So I think in 2 years we'll have those metrics, and then on that basis, what should this then look like, and should we expand it, or does it work precisely because it's small, or is it scalable, and if so, how much? And I think that is a very important conversation. And that's what we're sort of essentially collecting data right now. So next year we'll probably do something very similar. We're not going to go to Paris. We're going to go to Santiago, Chile. And so it's a slightly different kind of environment, different kind of trip. We are going to, the alumni mentors, these were both basically people that I knew or had some connection to. But I think, that we should go beyond my immediate. So we're going to utilize different offices on campus to help us find people who want to, once we see the interest, how we can sort of institutionalize this in a way, and sort of bring in CDE and other structures. So I think, yes, in 2 years, 3 years, I think we will have enough data. Then when you graduate, then they can also say, this did not work our junior year, this did not work our senior year. They can also, as seniors, then reflect on their sophomore year. But that is important, and that's why we're taking it very slowly, and we're trying to do things sort of thoughtfully, but also in the spirit of the program. And what is sort of guiding me is that this is a research-based, because we're an academic institution, and this is faculty-led, and we know about research. But the interdisciplinary is the next part that's so important. And then the third part is the cohort thing. And that is something that we as faculty don't have much experience with. And that is something that is sort of the exciting part of it. And then when will you evaluate the success of it? Is it when you come for your 5th year reunion or your 10th year reunion, when you reflect on your career in a way?
In my experience with social work NGOs, impact assessment is that one thing that everyone in the room is like, okay, like how do we go about this? Like, is it testimonies? Is it having some scientific way of measuring, okay, exactly what is working and what is not working and how much is it working? Because you were talking and we were like, we'll be back in our senior year and there'll be quadruple amount of global scholars, and we were like, okay, how does that feel? What does that feel like going from the only 12 to like increasing and increasing and increasing? I think it'll just have to be an experiment even for us at this point, like just going through it and figuring it out. It's a lot of improv with this one. Yeah.
So, for example, when I took the interviews with all 70 students your year and the other year, first year, it was a marked difference between interviewing this class who are applying for something that had never existed to the first years who are applying for something that they saw. They knew these people, they had reached out to them, and sort of they saw them as role models, as inspiration, so they had something tangible. And also to hear that in the interviews you hear what people are, their anxieties and what they're interested in. And on the basis of that, then we can also organize accordingly. And that's why, for example, like I said before, the mentorship structure was almost like an afterthought. Maybe that would be a good idea. But now I sort of see it as integral to the program. That came in with my conversation with them and then with the aspects.
Yeah, just we have extremely strong feedback loop, because we also have you mentioned Cole Manson.
Yes.
Yeah, because Magnus Bernhardsson quite often asks for feedback, and for instance, I'm very bold, so I say directly like what I don't like and what I like. And the same with our administrator, who is a student, who is also asking for feedback, and will also give feedback. And this feedback is actually implemented, like new events actually created. So it's like it's very nice accountability and credibility of a program.
Yeah, we hired somebody who's class of 23.5. Who finished in December, and then he was on a swim team, so he was hanging around town until the end of the swim season. But he happened to be a Rhodes Scholar, and so I thought, oh, that seems like a good person to be involved in the program. So he's been working with them in sort of one-on-one, but also helping me with event planning, and then also preparing for the conference. So yes, we are constantly getting feedback in many different ways.
And it's been like just a year or so, and like we just had the next cohort come in, but we can already feel some of the changes that have taken place, or like some of the things that have started changing and transforming with the new cohort and kind of events that we're having. Since we were literally the first cohort ever, so there's like new events that we never had, like mentorship events, or like talking to them events, or like getting to know them events. But yeah, it's already shifting, and we can feel it. So I'm kind of excited to see where it goes.
So that seems like a very nice end. I'm very excited to see where it goes. Thank you so much.